Welcome to Work From Your Happy Place, the podcast that equips you with the tools, know-how, and motivation to live your dreams and find your happy place. Be sure to sign up for our free weekly newsletter for a recap of the week's guests and a preview of what's in store. To sign up, simply text the word Happy Place with no space to 33444. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce the host of Work From Your Happy Place, Belinda Ellsworth.
Hey everyone, it's Belinda Ellsworth here with your Tuesday tip, and today I wanted to talk about numbers. Knowing your numbers, why it's important, and which numbers should you be looking at. The reason I thought this would be a perfect time to do this is here we are in the early part of July. And July for a lot of people is a beginning of a fiscal year. It is also midway point through the year. So it's time to get a hold of what you've done so far from the beginning of the year till now, and then what your numbers look like and how you can adjust those to still have the year that you really want to have before 2021 is complete. For those of you in sales, more than likely, a lot of your sales are going to come in this third and fourth quarter of the year. And so it's really important to know what numbers you want to beat. Where are you in comparison to where you were this time last year? So let's dive in and let's talk about the importance of numbers. One of the things that I hear so often is that I'm just not a numbers person. And I've always been perplexed by this. I don't know where my love of numbers really started, but I remember that it was at a very, very young age that I was very interested in calculating things, in tallying, in seeing if I could beat that particular number. I mean, I know this sounds crazy, but I used to come home from Halloween, dump all of my candy into the floor, and sort all of it and keep a tally on how many I had gotten of each one and which one was the winner and who was giving out what. And this would be something that my brother and I would do and then compare notes. And why did we do this? I don't know, but it was so much fun for me. And that's how I know that this was sort of a natural thing for me at a very early young age. It has served me well. I think that I have succeeded in business. I have outperformed in sales organizations where I was actually a sales representative. And that led me to go on to becoming a speaker about sales because I did such an incredible job at a very young age. But it was because I was in tune with my numbers every single step of the way. I've had a very successful business for the past 26 years, and you cannot have and operate and own a successful business if you don't know your profit, your loss, where can you adjust, how can you be better? How can you make more money? How can you cut expenses? If you aren't keeping track of anything, it is going to be hard for you to know and even feel excited, because part of knowing where you are and know that you are doing better or knowing what you can do to adjust that, that's where the excitement comes from. That's where the energy comes from. And so if you have absolutely nothing, no point of reference, then you kind of just go along. Many times people will say, yeah, I didn't really do that well. And then I'll say, well, let's take a look. Let's look at what you did before. Let's look at how you outperformed. And then I'll say, are you kidding? You're up by 40%. You're killing it. You're rocking it right now. And they're like, I am? And then all of a sudden, they're excited and they leave that conversation like totally on fire versus coming into the conversation when they say, I'm really not doing that well right now. You don't really know whether you're doing well or you're not if you absolutely have no clue about your numbers. So what are some of the things that you can be keeping track of? Well, just in business in general, you want to keep track of your profit and loss. So you want to either have someone professionally doing this for you. Now, I've had accountants do it. I've had someone on my team doing it. The best person I ever had was a part-time staffer that I had that actually did my numbers, gave them to me on a regular basis, and we actually did a deep dive into analyzing those and what we could do to either save money or where we were really just working harder and spending more and not really making any more money. So it's like, is this activity really worth it because it's costing as much as we're making? And then we can decide, no, we don't want to put all of our energies into that project, or we don't want to do that again this same time next year, because what did we gain from it? And if you're not keeping track of numbers, like for example, well, did it increase our emailing list? Maybe we didn't actually make a profit, but long-term profit. Did we gain people to put into our funnel that we would be able to market to? If you don't know that answer, then you don't really know whether it was worth it or it wasn't. So knowing your profit and loss statement and then actually having someone sit down with you and kind of go over it, that's probably the best case scenario. But if not, have someone, a professional, doing it, and you need to make sure that you go through it every single month and see how you're doing. You cannot wait until the end of the year and then go through your profit and losses and then be disappointed at tax time because you realize you didn't really make that much income, and then you're frustrated or you feel let down. I can remember I would always have a tremendous amount of sales reps end up leaving or quitting or deciding to do something different when it became tax season because they had such a letdown of feeling where they were, and it's because they weren't in tune with it all year long or able to make adjustments. I always say knowing your numbers is like having your own personal coach that is showing you and telling you where to put your energy and where to put your time. So knowing your profit and loss for your business is probably one of the most important ones on a big scale, on a 360-degree overview. That is what you need for sure. Now, within that, what are some other kinds of numbers that you can be keeping track of? Well, let's talk about followers. Let's talk about your social media and your email list. And so you need to sit and look and see, okay, where are we right now? Every week or every month at minimum, keep track of how many people have we added to our email list? How many people have we added to Instagram? How many followers have we added to Facebook? How many people do I have following me on LinkedIn? You can start to see a pattern. And when you see that it's dropped, it's usually just a tiny little tap on the shoulder that says, yeah, you haven't really been engaged. You haven't gone live in a while. You haven't posted an article. You haven't been engaging in other people's posts. Like when I see a drop, I think, ooh, what's my activity been? What am I doing differently this week than, say, 3 weeks ago when we had 79 new people following us, and this week we have 2? So when I see that and it's right in front of my face, it makes me look back on my behavior, what I was doing that was working, and what did I stop doing? Because a lot of times, this is what we do, folks. As we're going along and we're working really hard, we are using a particular behavior. We're creating focus, many of the things that I've already trained you on. And then all of a sudden, things start to really percolate and they're going along and you're like, oh, wow, I've got this. And I know every single one of you have had this attitude. I've had that attitude. Wow, I've got this. And then all of a sudden I'm watching my numbers and I'm like, oh, they're dropping, or we're not getting as much engagement as we were. Now, why? And then when I look at that, I'm able to see immediately, wow, I'm not doing the same behavior that I was doing when we were rocking it. And if you are in tune with that on a pretty short leash, then that allows you to change direction or to fix it. Sadly, when people don't keep track of their numbers, they'll start to see a decline to then where it's noticeably different because it's showing up in the income that you're making. And then it can be hard to change that course. It's like if you're going along, think about a big cruise ship. This is what I always think of in my mind. A cruise ship, you got to have some energy, right, to get that going. And you can't just turn a big cruise ship on a dime. I mean, you can't just completely turn that really, really fast. It's got to be a slow progression in order to turn that cruise ship. And so think of it like this. If I'm going along and I see, we've got a slight change, I can start to what? Change that course just ever so slightly. I don't have to do a complete 360 turnaround because it's going to be hard. And then it's going to take you several months to get back on track versus if you had kept up with it on a monthly basis. It's amazing to me because I consult with different companies. And one of the things that I say to every company is I want to see your numbers weekly. And I have to say that the companies that I see the largest amount of growth and that I feel I have the largest impact is with the companies that actually provide those numbers for me. And each week on our weekly consulting call, the first thing that we do is we go over those numbers. Now, interestingly enough, out of, say, 3 clients or 4 clients that I may have at any given time, one of them will actually say, okay, this is what she asked for. We're going to get it to her and we're actually going to go over it. And I'm always blown away that we actually see the results we want to see. The other companies, they don't get me the numbers. And do you want to know why for the most part? It's because they weren't collecting them in the first place. It was not a habit for them. They don't see the validity, and they just get them sometimes to me at the end of the month. Well, guess what? You can't change course at the end of the month and say, wow, we were down this month. But mid-month, I could have said, okay, let's look at where you were last year. Now, what did you do last year that warranted or gained you $100,000 in the third week of July? What promotion did you do? What did you do that caused this? Did you do a sale? Did you have some extra products that were available? Did you have some exclusive items? Did you launch something new in that window? So if we can look at where you were last year compared to where you are this year, you can also look back on the activities that you did that gained you that momentum. And what I find is there are companies that no matter how much I ask for it, no matter how much I want to go over it on a weekly basis, they'll get it to me monthly, sometimes quarterly, and they'll go, oh yeah, I totally forgot. Oh, we need to get that. That means they're not looking at them themselves either. And so when you do this, you cannot change direction. And it should be no surprise to any of you then that the companies that I have the greatest success with are the ones that supply their numbers on a weekly basis. And we do a comparative analysis to where they were at this exact same time last year. That way you're always comparing apples to apples, not apples to oranges. You can't compare one month over the next month. You can't say, oh, here we are in June, July, let's beat that. August, let's beat that. September, let's beat that. Because let's face it, every single company has a selling cycle. And depending on what your business is, you have products that may sell more in the summer, or you have products that sell more in the fall. You may have your slow time, maybe summer, where somebody else's strongest selling time and the most amount of money they make is in the summer, like the tourism industry, for example. So it depends on what your company is, but it really depends on comparing July of this year to July of last year. Now, I realize, and all of you do too, that 2020 was a definite disruptor. And so for a lot of people, I say, don't get disappointed that your numbers aren't exactly where they were in 2020. Let's look at where they were in 2019 and let's take a comparative analysis from that. That can give us a closer gauge on, are we up or are we down? Because a lot of people had crazy sales in early COVID because everybody was going online, everybody was supporting each other, people had nothing else to do, it just seemed like the right thing to do. And then people kind of got bored with that, and we're finding this spring we did not see the same amount of increase or percentage increase that we did in 2020 over 2019. And now we're looking for that same percentage of increase in 2021, and it's just not there, and people are disappointed. But in reality, COVID year 2020 was a disruptor, and so we can't always compare everything to that. Now, I've given you a lot to think about right now, but things in numbers that you can keep track of are simply, all of your social media and email marketing numbers. That would be one. Number two would be your sales. And the third one, of course, is your expenses, so that you are making sure and have a handle on your expenses. We were suddenly having more expenses than normal. And then I took a hard look, and we were paying for two programs that were exactly the same. We had bought one program and spent $297 a month on it, and then we ended up switching to another software platform, and we're paying $197 a month for that one, but we never canceled the $297. So suddenly when I saw that my expenses were going up dramatically, I was like, why is this happening? Let's go look. Well, we were duplicating our expenses on some of the same exact products that no one had ever canceled when a new marketing person came on board with us and said, oh, I totally use this. It's totally better. Well, then you got to look and cancel the other ones that you're using, or you're just going to have more expenses without having a greater amount of income come in. And actually, it's wasted expenses. So that was something that we identified this last year in getting a new marketing team, is that we hadn't released some of the old programs that we were using when we produced or started using new programs. That's a lot with software and apps and different things that assist you with your business. So make sure you're using the right ones, the most current ones. Where can you consolidate and save some money with that? So this is just a few tips on knowing your numbers, but quit saying, remember, whatever you confess out loud, that'll end up being your direction. And if you continue to say, oh, I'm just not a numbers person, then that is going to become your reality, versus saying, I'm going to learn how to become a numbers person. I'm going to start, even if it's one tiny step that you are keeping track of. And that's what I do with my staff every single week, is we look at our numbers, primarily of followers, to know if we're doing an effective job. We also look at sales to see if we're doing an effective job. I look at our sales at the same time last year and say, oh, what did we do last year that created or generated an extra $50,000 in 2 days? Oh, wow, we did that masterclass, or we did a special, or we did whatever it was. But that's where you need to take a serious look. You still have half a year, guys. It's July, and you've got the rest of 2021 to really make happen and make the income that you still want for this year. But it's only going to be through knowing where you're at right now. Where is it that you want to go, and where do you need to make adjustments? I hope that you find this information valuable, but more importantly, I hope you'll dive in and start doing it. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week on Tuesday Tips.
Thanks for joining us at Work From Your Happy Place. If you like what you hear, please share it with your friends, and be sure to rate and review us on iTunes or Stitcher. For a free gift on finding your own happy place, please visit workfromyourhappyplace.com and click on the free audio button. Thanks again for listening.